Awesome. So we're here with Daniel Johnson, managing founder of WeScale Startups, operating out of UK. You guys have done like over 14 million in revenue. Phenomenal stuff. I was checking out your website earlier. How did you get started?
Thank you. So I originally got started as a wannabe entrepreneur when I was at school. I was very bored and I really wanted to get this fancy bicycle. And what I realized is that I'm not going to be able to afford this really fancy carbon fiber bicycle by watering gardens. So I started doing sort of odd jobs, bits and pieces. And what I came to realize is that being a bit of a nerd, I started fixing computers. And whilst I was doing that, I realized, hey, this Google thing, because I'm fixing computers at these businesses, is pretty simple. If you just have a website with bits of copy on it, you rank well. And things are a lot more sophisticated nowadays, but that's kind of how I got started. And from that point, I created a bunch of different businesses. The vast majority failed, but I was fortunate to have 2 exits. Yeah, actually both, one to a PE firm in Austin, Texas, and then one to a competitor in Europe. One was SaaS, one was e-com. And I had no idea what to do with myself because I was pretty young. I think I was 19 at the time.
Wow.
And I was kind of like, I don't really know what I'm passionate about apart from creating stuff, but I really enjoyed the process of building the companies. And that's kind of what I started doing. And I started doing that as a freelancer, actually. I was a consultant. And I accidentally started an agency. It was more a case of, you've grown this company, maybe you can help me with mine. And that's kind of what I did. And then I was like, okay, I need an account manager to help me manage this, and then someone else to help me manage that. And so here I am running WeScale Startups, helping predominantly early stage tech companies scale.
Wow, that's phenomenal. Okay, that's really impressive. So you're 19 years old, you do like 2 successful exits. And of course, as any serial entrepreneur knows, majority of your businesses are going to be failures. That's what propels you to get to your success. The 99% failure rate is actually a good thing because 1 out of 100 hits, that's phenomenal. Because then you're launching 200 and then getting 2 exits out of that. And then you stumble into this natural agency thing where people are like, hey, you're good at what you do. Can you help me? And there's a lot of demand out there. Once you can lead with some kind of value or some kind of proof that you've done things, which you've clearly done, other folks just automatically start attracting to that. They talk to somebody else and they talk to somebody else. And pretty soon you have an influx of warm leads, potentially hot leads. And then you get to sort of determine who you work with and who you don't want to work with. So what is like your criteria on selecting a good partner?
Do you mean a company to work with?
Yes, probably more like a customer or client.
Sure. So initially I had very fixed criteria based on business metrics, but what I came to realize is that for me, the most important part is actually the relationship that I have with the founder. Because when I look back at the companies that I've been able to work with most effectively, it often comes down to, did I enjoy working with them? And I think even before you think about the commercials and the monetization, you've got to think about why are you doing what you do? And I do it because I really enjoy sort of problem solving. I enjoy the where are we now, where do we need to get to, and what steps do we need to take in order to achieve that? And ultimately, the work of actually growing a business is one aspect of it. But the other aspect is being able to communicate effectively with your clients. So number one, do I like them? Do I enjoy working with them? And right now, I'm very fortunate to have really good relationships with my clients. I look forward to working with them. I look forward to doing good work with them. That is a massive aspect of it, because particularly when you're self-employed, you have an emotional attachment to your business. Now, that can be beneficial in terms of, hey, I'm doing well. This gives me a great sense of satisfaction. But also on the other side, if things aren't going well, it's difficult because you can't really switch off, or at least I still struggle to switch off. So if you've got a bad client, and I have had lots of them because the startup world is full of egos, it becomes very difficult. It makes your life difficult. So the first thing is kind of like, do I enjoy working with the client? Are they easy to communicate with? Do they learn? Are they willing to hear advice? And I think that's quite difficult because particularly early stage companies, their business is their baby. And I completely understand that. But sometimes they have these very fixed emotional perspectives on what they want and what they're looking for. And sometimes that's not malleable. And I'm sure to a certain extent, I could probably educate them. I want to say manipulate, but that's not really what I want to be doing. When I look back on my deathbed, I want to be able to say I did good work with fun people. So that's the emotional side. And then the sort of practical side is like, are they actually a sustainable business? Like thinking about the sort of lemonade stand aspect of it. is this actually solving a real problem that people will pay money for? And there is realistic prospects of scaling it. And that's the kind of two elements that I'm looking for.
I understand. So, folks that are listening, and I've kind of fallen trapped to this as well, is initially when you're starting off, you're going to pick whoever has the money, essentially. Whoever is meeting you at your value level, you're probably going to take on as a client because you're starting off, right? You just want to get your feet wet. But then once you get at your level, essentially, now you can start filtering, and you have basically an onboarding process where they might fill out a form, they might have an application, then you might have a discovery call. And through those steps, you're learning about them. How quickly are they responding? What is their attitude level, like you mentioned? Are they arrogant coming in here? Because sometimes businesses will hire a consultant and then feel like the business owner is teaching the consultant. And that doesn't make a lot of sense because you just paid for somebody's professional opinion. Get their opinion, right? See it, try it out, test it, because the consultant is coming in from a third-party perspective and obviously built on experience. So they might have some antidote, they might have some medicine for your business that you just need to try, right? Give it a shot. And then from the consultant standpoint, what I've learned is I may not always have the right answer either, because the business owner is so close to their business processes. Sometimes they just know when something is not going to work. Like, hey, I literally tried that last week, failed miserably. I don't want to waste your time going through the same process again. So they kind of put their foot down. And so in those situations, what I do is I kind of take this curious tone. And that's why I said pandering earlier, which is more like, kissing their butt, essentially. To say oh, great. Why don't you teach me? Tell me why this is not working. And so we'll kind of go through this diagnosis process of them kind of explaining and walking through all of those pitfalls. And then wherever there's an issue where I see, oh, okay, they're definitely missing this one piece, let me introduce that as a third-party perspective to say, okay, I wonder what our customers would think in that situation. Do you think they would either think A or would they think B? And then now I'm really, like you just said, right, kind of manipulating or moving them along, nudging them into a possible solution that was ultimately my goal. But you want to make it look like it was their idea. So I think that's pretty impressive that you're filtering folks coming in now. And how many clients do you have today? Or, let's say up to this year. Let's talk some numbers.
I have 3 anchor clients and then a bunch of smaller clients. So I used to have a lot more sort of medium-sized clients. But what I've realized is that I don't get as involved as I would like. So what I've done is I've focused on sort of a few bigger clients. And then I also do a lot of mentoring. And that's something that I've been doing for 8 years or so. And a bit like consulting, what I've realized is that half of the value that you provide is the actual work, the numbers, the revenue, the customers. And the other half of it is the value that your client perceives. So I, for example, hate writing pitch decks. I hate writing update decks. But what I've come to realize is that you have to do that in order for your client to appreciate the value that you've provided them. You have to provide context to the numbers, and you have to explain the why. And that took me a while to understand, because when I was a founder, I had a team and they were fantastic and they were definitely the cause of my success. But at the same time, I knew what I knew, and I didn't realize that my clients didn't understand what I knew. And so you have to sort of educate them on the why and the process and the decision making as part of that. A bit of a side note, but I learned that from working with an American chap. I was a consultant and we partnered on a few projects, and he said we were peers, which was very nice of him, but really I was working for him. And what he was amazing at was this ability to understand what the customers were looking for and be able to articulate it in a way that made sense to them. And what was also interesting is that that's kind of what we're doing with our clients, our clients' clients. If you're a B2C or even a B2B project, it's not just about creating a good product. You have to make it in such a way that your clients or their clients understand the value that your product provides. And that's been a difficult learning, because it took a lot of fails in order to do that. But yeah, I see it as the work that you do and the consulting aspect of as well. And I really enjoy that, because I think it's very personal, it's very empathetic. It requires you to truly understand the people and understand their motivations. Perhaps it's different if you're working at McKinsey or a bigger business, but when you're working with sort of tech startups, that's kind of the perception I see.
Yes, definitely. The culture is so much different. Working with some of the top for firms, it's completely different than, startup scale, basically a smaller team. And you have, I think, 6 or 7 people, on your leadership team. And then you have the 3 anchor clients, which is great because that gives you a lot of predictability, repeatability. And then every day is like a different problem, right, that you get to solve. So you wake up, you're like, okay, what's the day going to bring today? Like, are we trying to do lead generation? Are we trying to expand in a different country? Do we have new product lines? What are the situations? And I really enjoy solving those types of problems. It's just a lot of fun. Like, I was up till like midnight last night just talking to one of my friends, and we're just coming up with software solutions and different ideas on how to expand. And it's really fun. I have a school community as well where we talk with lots of different entrepreneurs. We have 86 as of now, and we just started a few months ago.
Cool.
And every single one has their own story, right? Like where they came from. 17-year-old yesterday I chatted with in Canada, runs a snow plowing business, made over $120,000 top line revenue. He's 17, and this is already his 5th business. He's launched businesses and 2 of them were successful. And now we're talking about like, okay, well, how can we scale that up to the point where you can sell it? Because he wants to offboard and focus on software more. So I think that I want to connect him to you basically, because I think those would be really good relationships to cultivate and grow. So do you have let's talk about your tech stack a little bit. So what type of tools do you bring in to a relationship in order to help solve some of those problems? What do you guys use?
That's a very good question. I think it really depends on the client. Arguably, boring tools are the most important. Are we able to communicate effectively with the client? Project management. I am naturally like super ADHD. I want to do everything and I just want to run it, and I don't want to have to think about the strategy or the research. But ironically, most of my fails have come from that. So I kind of switch it the other way around. So just having like really good project management, I think, is so important because there's 10,000 different things you need to do. And I use ClickUp, but it depends on, I don't think it really matters. I think it really depends on whatever you're going to use properly and actually implement. The other is Slack. I think it's really important to have that sort of instant communication. And also it's great because you can connect to different things. The other thing is analytics. I definitely have my preference, Amplitude, Mixpanel, although Mixpanel had a data leak recently. If you've signed up to ChatGPT, I'm sure you received the email. And again, there's a lot of different things you can use, but it's more about what are you going to implement and actually think about. Does that answer your question?
It does. Yeah, that's really important to know the tools of the trade. Because when you're hiring, let's say, a service-related business, it's important to know what their level of experience is with the tools in their belt. They show up with drills, they show up with testers and all sorts of cool gadgets. You're paying the consultant for their level of experience using those tools. So, when you show up saying, hey, we use ClickUp for like project management, coordination, all of this type of stuff. We use Slack for communication. The customer may not even know some of these tools, but because you have that level of experience bringing them in, like a tool that we commonly use in our community is High Level, which is a CRM for customer management, but then it does all sorts of automations. So you can build websites and you can do workflows and you can do AI agents and voice agents, integrate their calendars. And it's like all of these other tools, including project management, put it all together into one package. So when you have somebody who's like a high level expert, the tool coming in with all of these solutions, it's like, oh, great. Like, a lot of times we'll find a business owner who's like, hey, I ventured into that area. Like I have this AI guilt because, every other business owner wants to introduce AI into their company, but they don't know quite how. Like, how do I actually start? Like I know ChatGPT, I know I can go ask questions, but how does that make me money, right? And they have difficulty connecting those dots. And for somebody like you or myself, it's like, well, what do you mean? Like the first thing you should do is get on your website, put in a chatbot, have all of the data, feed it to your AI agent so now it can work for you 24/7, generating those leads on your website. You plug in something that simple to like a service-related business, and it almost like doubles their lead generation. Because when people are calling, the other day I needed my pool pump for my swimming pool is dying. So I'm on the phone trying to find a potential business just to take my call. And it's challenging. I'm in Florida over here. And so I'm calling every single one. It's like voicemail this, we're too busy, we'll call you back. And I'm like, I just need one person. So if you're a pool servicing business, for example, and you have an AI agent that can answer 24/7, you're capturing every single person as they're going down that list. They always stop at you Even if you're ranked like number 9 or 10 on Google, it doesn't matter because the first 8 are not answering their calls, right? It's like these simple little tweaks that you can do to a business that significantly change their entire landscape. So how are you doing lead generation today? And then when those leads come in, how are you divvying them out into your team? Can you talk about that?
Sure. So lead generation, it's funny because I always talk to my customers. I want to try and help them get scalable, predictable, and repeatable growth. And yet I don't really implement the same myself. The vast majority of both my biggest and my smallest customers come through like a WhatsApp conversation. Hey, you worked with such and such. Can you help us out? And I think I've been a bit over-reliant on that because it's fantastic, but there's always this fear at the back of my mind, like, what happens if that just dries up tomorrow?
Exactly.
So that's, I think that's ubiquitous. I think there's lots of different people with that experience. I think the other aspect of it is also, I'm part of a lot of communities and I'm very vocal and opinionated. I think that's good because it definitely drives away some people, but by doing so, there's some groups of people that resonate with my messaging. And I find that a lot more organic and natural than trying to be someone I'm not in terms of doing lead gen that's kind of generic. So I find that I can share my opinions and my experience and people find that valuable and want to work with me for that, which is great. And it means that I get to do something I enjoy, which is chatting to people and sort of saying, hey, this went well, this went wrong. Actually, no, you shouldn't be doing that. And I've resonated well, and I've sort of accidentally moderate a few different communities. One is a 50,000 person marketer community. I got so annoyed at all the spam, I kept reporting all the spam to the moderators, and eventually they were like, hey, why don't you just join us? And I was like, cool, let's do that. I am practicing with outbound and doing a bit more purposefully because we do a lot of that with our clients and it works pretty well. You just have to have that message market fit, which I think is really difficult to appreciate until you've done it yourself, until you've done it successfully. Because I think everyone knows that they should be doing it, but they don't really know how. They're not sure, what do I really say? And it comes across as spammy or artificial and non-genuine. So that's, there are different sort of layers to it. And I think start with stuff that feels comfortable and then move into the less comfortable stuff.
I think you're doing exactly what you're saying you're going to do, Daniel. Like talking about what you do is the evidence that people need to hear. So you being on this podcast is case in point. You basically talk about what exactly you've done before, and that's the proof. And then you prove it, of course, with testimonials, and you use case studies, for example. And then you show up when people ask you questions, which is phenomenal. I mean, you're doing this for a 50,000 channel group and moderating. I want you to do it for my school community. So when folks need mentorship and they say, hey, I do have a business, I have a few clients, and I'm looking to take that number of client and then double it next year or triple it next year. How do I go from 1 to up there? So how does one work with you? Like, what are your prices? What's like the onboarding process?
To answer that question, what I generally realize is that people come to me and they say, hey, Daniel, we're here, we want to get to here, but we don't know what that path looks like. We've tried Facebook ads, we've tried SEO, we've tried referral, we've tried everything and we want to get to there, but it's not working. So can you help us launch this Facebook campaign? Can you help us do X, Y, or Z? And usually what happens is I have a conversation with them and I come to realize that they don't know the fundamentals. And the fundamentals are, who is your customer? What is the problem you're solving? How do you articulate your message in a way that makes sense to them? And finally, what is the problem that you actually solve? Because I think a lot of people don't really understand that. It's only kind of once you do something successfly, do you appreciate the value of those like fundamentals? And generally what happens is they're missing something. They're missing one of those the answer to one of those questions, or they think they have it, but it's more sort of an internal feeling rather than actually validated answer. So depending on if they appreciate that, depends on sort of if I'll be able to work with them. My rates are usually somewhere between £500 to £1,000 a day, but it very much varies depending on the type of company. For a lot of companies, I take commission and fundraising. I will take a percentage of the Series A, Series B round for the right companies for their connection.
That's
for fundraising, for example, it's all about narrative. It's about the story of your business. And I think it's very difficult to truly appreciate that until you've done it. And then when you've done it, you realize, wow, this feels so easy. Why isn't everyone doing it? Well, there's lots of reasons, but because I can do it and I know people and they trust me to be able to identify businesses that are actually going to make money, then I'm able to refer to them businesses that need investment, that have a clear path to growth. And as a result, they trust me and are willing to take that. So it's varied, and I wish I could give you a more specific answer, but usually I sort of operate on that kind of basis, plus, base plus some sort of commission based on revenue generation, customer acquisition, fundraising, which I also think gives my clients a bit of trust in terms of I have faith that you're going to be able to help me achieve the goal that I want, and you've got skin in the game as well.
Exactly. And I used the word earlier, partnership, and that's really what it comes down to. Initially, there's this process of feeling each other out, kind of like an interview, if you will, on both sides. And if it works out, then that's how you identify some of those pain points. And then the solution has to meet that pain point. Sometimes that solution is quite demanding and, it takes a lot of hours and resources. And of course, so you're going to charge accordingly. Sometimes it's a really minor fix and maybe you'll just add a value for free. Like it doesn't really matter. It's just going to build a relationship. And then maybe that turns into a word difference referral in the future. And that's really cool if you've done some fundraising as well. We had some ideas of doing like Kickstarters and, I've helped companies in the past do their types of funding to build software and platforms. But coming in with that level of experience says a lot because really it's about those relationships that you've built over the years that somebody else who just decides to raise capital can't just go generate those relationships. They have to rely on you to be that intermediary and help them scale to that level. That's phenomenal.
I want to share one thing that I think your audience will find really valuable that's massively helped me. So I create a sort of internal friend CRM, and I've been doing this for about 5 years. And every time I meet someone at an event, well, what used to happen is I'd meet people at an event, I'd say to myself, they're really cool, I need to stay in touch with them, and then I'd forget about their existence. I'd add them to LinkedIn and then we'd never speak again. I add them to a Notion database and I go through that database every single day and I try to speak to everyone at least once every 3 months.
Whoa.
And there's now about 150 people in that database. And that is the biggest source of my leads, my connections, my investors. They know who I am, they appreciate the value, and I stay in touch. And for some of them, I won't, I'll speak to them on and off for a few years. And then after that, they'll be like, I've got a company doing a Series B, you're the person I need to speak to. And it's super simple, and it's something that people can start doing today. It takes 10 minutes, like every day, just going through that database and saying, that chap I met at this networking event. And it's also really good for friends, just like keeping in contact with people that are cool people that you want to maintain a relationship with. But that's 100%. Extremely valuable, and you can do that in any platform you want. Go high level, yeah, I'm sure.
Exactly. Imagine how cool that is in high level to do something like that. And then you could just have a drip campaign where you send them a quick little message on their birthday, and it's like, it's coming from you. It's a natural message. The good part is Daniel, the person, never forgets to send that message because you don't want one friend to get the message and the other one doesn't. And then they talk and they're like, well, I don't get messages. And then that's a really clever idea because you have an internal CRM, you said, like kind of like on a personal level. Man, you have a ton of knowledge. I think this is really helpful. Would love for you to join our community and use that as sort of like a lead generation, relationship building, add everybody into your CRM. And then what I do is we have calendars. So you can be a guest webinar essentially and teach people about startups. And then that usually gives a little bit of a platform for folks to generate some leads off of that and build relationships. So I'll certainly send you the invite. Really appreciate it, join. But aside from the school community, which I'll share, how can people find you?
So they can visit me at WeScaleStartups.com or danieljohnson.xyz. And that's predominantly, add me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on that. And I do actually engage with people. Outside of that, feel free to drop me an email if you've got any growth related questions. I love talking about growing companies and I'm always available and I'm a very chatty chap. So please do get in touch.
Heck yeah, that's awesome. Well, I'm really glad I met you, Daniel. We'll see you around. Thank you.
Likewise. Cheers. Bye.